Precinct Omega Friday live stream with me, Roby Jenkins. You may notice that I'm a little bit more formal this week than I usually am with a Friday live stream. Simple reason for that being that I'm responding to some requests from viewers and from my lovely Patreons, who can be found at patreon.com/Precinct Omega, who have asked if I could start posting these live stream videos once they're finished up onto YouTube for people to consume later at their leisure, which I am delighted to start doing. So what I'm going to be doing is on a Friday afternoon, after the live stream, I will download it, I will tweak the video a little bit just to sort of add some intro and outro cards, and I will post it up on YouTube. It'll be initially listed as a private listing, which will be posted for patrons only for 1 week, and then the following week it will be released to the general public. So this Friday afternoon, it's Friday today, hence why it's the Friday live stream, obviously. This Friday afternoon I will post up this week's live stream for the patrons on YouTube, but only patrons will be able to access it. But last week's and the weeks before, which have been released for patrons, will go up for the general public's consumption. So those last 2 weeks, if you didn't watch them on the live stream, you can catch them on YouTube. Check out the Precinct Omega channel and they'll be up later today. I can just about see my screen from where I'm sitting, so I can see that I've got people live, and it looks like the comments are back now, so I should be able to see comments. Let me just see. Yeah, okay, so I can just about see the comments screen, but what I'm going to do, rather than my usual approach has been very informal, as I mentioned, and I'd kind of look to the screen and see if there are any comments and respond to them. What I'm going to do is I've actually got notes for this Friday live stream, which I've never done before. Putting things on YouTube means that I want to try and get a bit more structured, a bit more formal for you. So I've got notes in my fancy Precinct Omega notebook, and I'm going to go through those, and I will take breaks during the notes to have a look at the comments and see what's going on. But I can see that Alex Paint Stuff is in the comments on Facebook. Hello, Alex. Thank you for joining me again. Really nice to see you again. Okay, so I've covered over the YouTube thing. That was first thing on my notes. The next one is the main topic for this week's Friday live stream. I've had a few questions from people. Every few weeks I get the same question, and I thought it would be helpful to make a single answer that I can just send people to, which is, what are the Precinct Omega Horizon Wars games? How do they all interrelate? And isn't stuff getting a bit confusing? And I can understand why things do look a little bit confusing to people who come new and fresh to Precinct Omega and think, what the heck is going on? So let me explain a little bit. First of all, Precinct Omega is me. It is just me. It is only me. There is nobody else. I do technically have a business partner, but she is my wife. So she is not involved in the running of the business or the designing of the games. So that it's just me. But it wasn't always just me. Previously, I worked with a publisher, and that publisher was Osprey Games. So, and before that, I didn't. I was just me beavering on my own, which is why things kind of got a little broken up. So to tell you the full story, way back, and I honestly couldn't tell you precisely when, around 2012, 2013, something like that, I started work on a game that I called Mecha War. And Mecha War was a mech-based miniatures game. I wrote it very quickly. I pushed it out under the heading of £1 war games. It was a simple game, maybe 20 pages long, that you could buy for £1. And I just did it for my entertainment and for various reasons. One of the reasons was that I was very broke at the time, and I couldn't really afford to keep playing the miniatures games I was playing at the time, mostly Games Workshop games. And I wanted a game that I could get onto the table and play and enjoy for less than £10, and I wrote Mecha War for that purpose. It was a good game, and it continued to evolve, and it acquired a couple of supplements, and I got the idea of publishing those as a single game. But before I went out and published them independently, by happy chance, I had the contact of the editor at Osprey Games, Phil Smith, and I reached out to Phil and said, would you be interested? And to my enormous surprise, he said, yes, I would, which is very exciting for a new game developer who'd never really published anything in earnest before. So Osprey, as you may be aware, went on and published a game that came to be called Horizon Wars. And it was released in 2016, and that was my game. And I was quite excited about that release, obviously. I was thrilled. And I don't want to say Horizon Wars was a failure. I think it's been... If I were doing myself favours, I'd say it was a sleeper success in that it's continued to attract interest and fans and people who are really enthusiastic about it. But a fact was that, it was the first time I'd ever published a book with the partnership of a real publishing company, and it had many, many positive aspects to it. I really enjoyed the experience. I had a fantastic relationship with Osprey, and I still have a good relationship with them. But I had plans and aspirations for Horizon Wars that Osprey wasn't interested in supporting for completely sensible commercial reasons. And due to that, Osprey and I came very amicably to a decision to part ways. Now, ideally, what would have happened was that I would have then taken Horizon Wars and I would have published Horizon Wars independently. But I didn't want to do that because Horizon Wars had already been published. It was already out there. It was a game in the world. And I didn't feel confident that there would be an enormous market for selling it again with a different publisher. So I took the decision to move the property forward and instead publish what I considered to be my sequel to Horizon Wars, which was Horizon Wars Zero Dark. Now, the first aspect of confusion that arises for a lot of people is that you've got Horizon Wars and Horizon Wars Zero Dark, and they say, what's the difference? The short answer is totally different games. From this point going forward, Horizon Wars is a catch-all for the setting. It is the family of miniatures agnostic, hard-ish sci-fi games that Precinct Omega publishes. So Hard War Zero Dark, sorry, Hard War. We'll come to Hard War in a moment. Horizon War Zero Dark is, in a way, it's the sequel to Horizon Wars, but in many ways it is now the first volume in Precinct Omega's Horizon Wars trilogy. Yeah? You with me so far? And it should be said it's not just about the setting. Horizon Wars is the setting, but the family of games are all built upon broadly similar mechanics. They are built upon the same basic mechanical foundation, which is what I wrote in the original Horizon Wars book. So now we are approaching the release of the second in the Horizon Wars trilogy, being Horizon Wars Infinite Dark. Infinite Dark is a spaceship combat game. So Zero Dark is a 28mm skirmish game. And when I say 28mm, all of my games are as miniatures agnostic as possible, and that includes scale. So if you're prepared to do a little bit of mental arithmetic, 15mm and upwards, up to 54mm if you feel inclined. But I mostly play it with 28mm. 28mm is kind of where I think most people are at with the game. So if I refer to Horizon Wars as being 6mm and Zero Dark as being 28mm, that isn't to exclude other scales. There are lots of other scales you can play these games in. That's the point of them being miniatures agnostic games. So Horizon Wars Zero Dark is Volume 1. Horizon Wars Infinite Dark, spaceship combat game, out at the end of May this year. So in just under a month's time, because it's April the 30th today and it's due to drop on the 28th of May. Nearly everything is in place for that to happen. I'm so close. I can taste it. By the end of next week, it should all be done. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, so Infinite Dark is dropping, and that is volume 2. And then in early 2023, volume 3 will come, which is Horizon Wars Midnight Dark, and that will be effectively the second edition of the original Horizon Wars game. Yeah. So that's the Horizon Wars trilogy: Zero Dark, Infinite Dark, and Midnight Dark. Infinite Dark 28mm skirmish, Infinite Dark spaceship combat, variety of scales, and Midnight Dark 6mm battle game. Okay, all good. Alongside these games, I am publishing supplements to them. And if you want to know if something is a supplement, look at the title. And we've only got one major supplement out at the time. I've got it to hand. Oh, it's over there. There we go. So you can see that. Okay, Zero Dark, Operation Nemesis. And it says Horizon Wars at the top, so that you know it's for Horizon Wars. Zero Dark tells you what volume of Zero Dark it is a supplement for. Operation tells you it's in the series of operations manuals for Zero Dark. So there'll be Zero Dark Operation something else down here, and Nemesis tells you the name of the operation. There we go. It all makes perfect sense. Really, it does. So look at the title. The title is the clue. So there will be there will be Horizon Wars Infinite Dark supplements. The plan. The 5-year plan for Horizon Wars as a product is 3 games, 3 major supplements for each game. And there will be minor supplements as well. And they are slowly dropping. They will come out as I finish them, as they occur to me. So although it'll be 3 major supplements per volume, and then minor supplements. Minor supplements will not be in physical form. They'll be digital products, mostly digital products only. There may be some exceptions to that along the way. Okay, but in principle, digital is my assumption for the minor supplements, and then the major supplements will be both PDF and print on demand. Whew, that's Horizon Wars. Now we need to put all of that aside and talk about Hard War. Hard War is not my game. Hard War is published, developed, managed, owned by Strato Mini Studios, Polish miniatures company, good people. They approached me quite a while ago to say, would I be interested in licensing the Horizon Wars rules to them? Now, it should be said straight up and down, they were not obliged to do that. It's a principle of game design that you cannot copyright the rules, only the expression of those rules. So there was no reason that Strato could not have simply taken the Horizon Wars rules and re-expressed them in their own words and released them as a new game without involving me at all. They didn't have to involve me, they did. Not only did they do that, but they offered to license the rules for a small fee, and they also offered me a small writing gig to write them a draft of the Horizon Wars rules for their miniatures. So I took the original Horizon Wars rules and I reframed, restructured, rejigged it for their miniatures. I finished the draft, I handed it over to them. They then worked on that draft for another 6 to 12 months. And that is Hard War. So Hard War, as it's now been published, it's out. You can buy a copy from the Strato Minis website. I honestly have no idea off the top of my head how much it is, because they were nice enough to give me a copy. At the moment it's PDF only. They would like to release a hard copy, but it will depend a little bit on the interest. But looking at the Hard War game Facebook group, it looks like there's quite a lot of interest. And it definitely looks like a really, really interesting take on the Horizon Wars game. Horizon Wars was written with this real focus on accessibility. You know, if you listen to any of my podcasts, if you listen to this live stream before, you'll know accessibility is really important to me. And the idea was clear in my mind that I wanted people to be able to play Horizon Wars with whatever minis they already owned, or minis that they'd always wanted to buy but never had a reason to. That's always been my kind of driving thing. Strato, of course, have got a miniatures range, and they would really like people to buy those miniatures, and they're lovely. I've actually got dozens of the darn things on the wall behind the camera for sale. So you can look on my website at precinctomega.co.uk. If you're interested in buying Strato minis and you're in the UK, I have stock. Please buy them from me. But yeah, so they've got their own miniatures, so they obviously had a different motivation in what they wanted the game to do. They really wanted the game to be a marketing tool for their miniatures. On the other hand, they also really respected my desire to keep the game accessible to people who already owned miniatures. And you will find that Hard War encourages you to use Strato minis, but by no means makes it a requirement. And you absolutely can use whatever miniatures you like to make your Hard War army. Pardon me. They've got lots of stuff in there which I did write. They've got some stuff that was taken from the Horizon supplement. In fact, that's a good point. We'll talk about that in a second. And they've got a whole load of stuff which I had nothing to do with. So one of a key thing is a customization option for your armoured vehicles is whether they are wheeled, tracked or hover armoured vehicles. In Horizon Wars there was distinction between hover vehicles and non-hover vehicles, but that was it. And they've shifted that balance and how those rules affect. It's a really nice twist. It's not something I had thought of. It's a great idea. I might even borrow it for Horizon Wars Midnight Dark. I don't know. We'll see. But as I say, it's their own game, and they are really looking forward to maturing and developing that game independently. And our explicit hope between both them and me, between Strato and Precinct Omega, is that Hard War will find its own direction, that the game will evolve and develop in a new path that will take it further and further away from Horizon Wars. And I suspect that when Horizon Wars Midnight Dark drops, we will see that divergence is even greater, because my plans for Midnight Dark are quite different to Hard War. Okay, so last thing, to deconflict, I did mention as we were passing Over the Horizon. Over the Horizon was my last salute to Horizon Wars as was. It compiled all of the extra material that I had written for Horizon Wars, all of the stuff that I had tried to persuade Osprey was worth releasing to extend the game, which they were not interested in doing. I bundled it into a book and I self-published it, Over the Horizon. And it was kind of Precinct Omega Publishing's first tentative step into self-publishing. If you've got the Horizon Wars book and you'd like a bit more oomph to it, go and get Over the Horizon. It's available as PDF or print on demand. It's not the world's best looking book. It was my first attempt. It's okay. It's not brilliant, but it's okay. And that's probably kind of all I've got to say about that. So I will sort of throw the floor open. If anybody's got any questions about that before I move on, I can see that I've got a few viewers on the live stream. If anybody's got any questions about any of the games, then now's your chance to ask. In a moment, I'm going to move on and I'm going to talk about some changes to the Patreon. And my dog is trying to get in. So I'm going to go and let my dog into the room while you decide if you've got any questions. Okay. No. Okay, no questions. Cool. We shall move on. Oh, hello now. Okay, let's talk about the Patreon. The Patreon is super important to me, and has been incredibly supportive and useful to the development of Zero Dark and now Infinite Dark. Fantastic. But it's been a bit of an experiment for the last 18 months that it's been running, and it's time to get a bit more serious, a bit more structured, a bit more focused, and I've been talking to my patrons about how I could make it meet their needs in a more structured way, and at the same time sort of align it more formally with helping me develop the games. And with that in mind, therefore, I've got 3 new things coming on the Patreon that are going to kick off tomorrow, being the 1st of May. And the first is Rule of the Month. So I've got 3 levels of backer. I've got my elites at $2 a month, I've got heavy elites at $3 a month, and I've got defense mechs at $5 a month, and you would adjust that to your local currency. So the heavy elites from now on are going to get a rule of the month, and that is basically, it's a rule that I'm proposing to introduce to the game in a forthcoming supplement of some sort. And I say the game, that game may be Zero Dark, maybe Infinite Dark, may eventually even be Midnight Dark. And now the dog wants to get out. Really do need to shut him away when I'm doing these things. Right, okay. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a heads up. This month's rule of the month is going to be capture. So rules for taking members of the opposition prisoner. That can be members of the Red Force or members of an opposing team if you're playing in the Versus mission in Zero Dark. So it's capture rules for Zero Dark are going to be released for heavy elites in the Patreon tomorrow. And for the defense mechs, they will get a mission of the month. Now that mission will include the rules of the month from Heavy Elite and will also include a brand new mission for Horizon War Zero Dark. And the missions that I'm going to be releasing and the rules are going to be sampled from the forthcoming operation manual, Operation Kurgan. So we've seen Operation Nemesis that I showed you a moment ago. I won't reach for it again. So Operation Kurgan is the second operation manual that is going to be released for Horizon War Zero Dark. It is very nicely advanced in its development, and I've got most of the new rules written for it. I am now working my way through the campaign itself, and I'm a little over halfway through the campaign. And the campaign in Operation Kurgan is going to revolve strongly around 2 themes. A little bit like Operation Nemesis revolved around the Nemesis and the mechs. So Operation Kurgan is going to revolve around spooks and journalists. Spooks are a type of hero. So it's a hero specialism in Horizon Zero Dark is to be a spook, which means that you're a spy, basically. You're an intelligence officer. You may or may not be a member of the actual special forces. You're kind of an attachment that the team may or may not actually like having along with them. Spooks are getting an expanded rules in Operation Kurgan. So in addition to the rules in the rulebook, the spook will have a sort of a menu of options that they can take. Either the rule that comes in the main rulebook or one of these alternatives, and there'll be different choices that they can make at different points in the campaign. And journalists. So at the moment in the core rules for Horizon War Zero Dark, we have MJs, embedded journalists, who are an ally choice. So they're an upgrade to a hero. You can add them to the team. They act independently, but they've got a fixed stat line. Operation Kurgan is going to introduce XJs, who are expeditionary journalists, and they are actually a new specialism. So they are heroes themselves. So they'll be able to do everything a hero can do. They'll be a customizable character who can have all the usual upgrades a hero can have, and they will have the benefits of being a journalist. So they'll have that buff action that journalists have got, and they'll have access to some special upgrades that are just for XJs. And the journalists and spies are going to be important in the Operation Kurgan story. So you're not going to be forced to take one. It's arguable whether it would even be an advantage to take one, but they're going to be part of the story. So the more you want to sort of get yourself involved in the storyline of Operation Kurgan, the more you're going to want to include or not include an XJ or a spook. That is a roundabout way of saying that the mission of the month for May is the first mission from Operation Kurgan. It's called Publicity Stunt. And the idea is that the heroes, the team, has been joined by a journalist. And that journalist is trying to put together a report on the work of the team. But of course, a lot of that work is highly classified. So in order to fill up the reporting that this journalist can do, the team has been instructed to take them out and basically take on a generic enemy force and do cool stuff. Do cool things for the camera so that the journalist can pad out future reporting and spread out their reporting to cover up for all the stuff they're not allowed to talk about. So the idea is to get out there and basically clock up stunts. And the more stunts you do and the more impressive they are, the more points you get. And the more points you get, the better your relationship is with the journalist and the media generally after this exercise. So that's Publicity Stunt. That is the mission for this month. So if you would like access to the Publicity Stunt mission, you need to be backing the Patreon at a Defence Mech level. If you would like access to capture rules for Horizon War Zero Dark, you need to be backing at least a Heavy Elite level. But if you want those rules and you're prepared to wait, they are all going to be in Operation Kurgan. Operation Kurgan is currently slated for a release in January 2022. If I can get it out sooner, I will. No promises. Right. Last thing that is coming up on the Patreon, and this is a Patreon exclusive thing, is a mission report of the month. And this is not me doing the work. I've got enough work writing and playtesting the games without trying to write mission reports as well. But it would be really helpful if I had good mission reports, because then I can publish them, I can share them either on YouTube or on my blog, and so more people can see the experience of other people that aren't me playing the Horizon War Zero Dark game. So I've invited my patrons to submit entries for mission report of the month, and deadline for that is the 16th of May. And you can do anything. You can do anything you like, as long as you write up the mission report or record it in a video, whatever you want. Submit your mission report to me, and my favourite one each month will get a prize. Now, what's the prize? Reasonable question, difficult to answer, because all of my patrons are different. They've all got different needs, they're all in a different place when it comes to the game. So some may not yet own Horizon War Zero Dark, they may just have Training Run, in which case I will give them a copy of the rulebook. They may have the rulebook but not have Operation Nemesis, in which case I'll give them Operation Nemesis. They may have both of those things, but they'd love to get a friend in as well, in which case I'll give them another one so they can get in their friends. I may have a rummage through my box of unpainted miniatures and see if there's something cool they want. I may even have a look through my cabinets of painted miniatures and see if there's something there that they would like. Who knows? I've even got some more Precinct Omega notebooks. So if you've not got a Precinct Omega notebook yet and you'd like one, Mission Report of the Month could be your way to get your own Precinct Omega notebook. Okay, so whatever you submit, we'll discuss what the prize is going to be, and we'll come to a decision. That is entirely between you and me. Right. Okay. Next thing. Any questions? Any questions in the Facebook about any of that? Nope. No questions. Fab. Okay. Moving on. Okay, I was talking about Patreon stuff. If you're not in the Patreon, you probably found that very dull. If you've got no interest in the Patreon, understood. Not relevant to you. So let's talk about something that is relevant to you, which is the Zero Dark 2021 Compendium. One of the things about Horizon War Zero Dark that I think perhaps some people haven't yet got their heads around is that it's very much written to be an open source game. That is, it is supposed to be written to be a game that you the players can tinker with. Because, like I said at the start of this live stream, I am just me. And being just me means that I don't have a huge sample size of how people want to engage with my games. And the guys on the Patreon are great, and they give me a lot of useful feedback, but I'm very conscious of the fact that people are now sort of corresponding with me, talking to me, asking me questions about how they play Zero Dark, and I am increasingly pushing it back and saying, you know, you've come to me with a suggestion to say, why not do this? To which I say, yes, why not do that? You know, your experience of Zero Dark is going to be different to somebody else's. How you want to engage with the game is going to be different to somebody else. And the great thing about a solo or co-op game is that there is no wrong answer. If you want to try, suggestion that came to me today, when bogeys become alert, they also go into Overwatch. Now, some people are going to go, really? That's terrifying. The moment I move, they will shoot at me. Yeah. But for this correspondent, he was finding the game too easy. And he wanted a tougher challenge. And which I'd say, yeah, by all means, have them go into Overwatch when they go alert. Write it up, tell me how it goes. It's not for me to tell you how to play. With that in mind, then, I thought it would be really interesting to put a shout out to the community of people playing Zero Dark and say, write it up. Write up the rules that you'd like to see. Write up the stories that you want to play out. Paint up the teams you would like to see on the tabletop. And hey, if you're that inspired, draw me a picture. Whatever new content you feel like creating, do it and send it to me. And that is what the 2021 compendium is going to be for. Now, technically it's a competition. There are rules, there are prizes. If you want to know the details, get on my blog at precinctomega.co.uk/blog. And I'm going to try really hard to get this right. If you are watching this on YouTube, I'm going to try and put a link. I always get this wrong. I think up there. Maybe. That might have worked. To the blog, and you can see the rules for this competition. But I say competition, I mean, I'm going to try and get as many people into print as I possibly can who send stuff into me until I run out of pages or quality material. So it's new rules, anything. New missions, new heroes, new upgrades, new activation rules for the Red Force, new custom complications tables, new activation tables for the Red Force, anything. Absolutely anything. Write it up. Send it in. I mean, there is a caveat. We'll come to that at the end. I'm also interested in fiction. Don't worry about canon. We're not interested in canonicity. If you've been inspired by anything in the Horizon Wars setting and you'd like to write some fiction set in it, send it my way. It can be anything up to 1,500 words is fine. If you have painted an X team and you'd like to show it off to the world, take some photos, send them in to me. Ideally a neutral background, it doesn't have to be. And again, like I said, art. If you want to draw your favourite hero, if you want to envisage a Hollywood star in the Zero Dark setting, anything. If you've got some art you'd like to create, it can be cartoon style, it can be hyper-realist, it can be photo montage, I don't care. As long as you've got the rights to use the assets in it. Send them to me, please, at the address precinctomega@gmail.com, and check out the rules on the blog. Okay. The one caveat to the compendium is that it does have a theme. The patrons voted on the theme. The theme for the 2021 compendium is unknown. Okay, unknown. So how it ties in to the theme is entirely up to you. The more clear the tie-in is, then the better chance you will have of being published. But if you can make even the most tangential connection to it, go for it. Everybody who is published will receive a free PDF copy of the compendium, and there are other prizes for the best submissions in each category. Okay, that's about it on that. Yep, that's it. And we're only 35 minutes into this chat. My word, I've done a lot more talking. I think it's because I'm conscious that we're going onto YouTube that I've done a lot more sort of continuous talking than I usually do. Last week was a lot easier because I was doing a hobby week. Next week will be hobby week again. Might alternate it, and you'll see my hobby desk every other week. Okay, I do have two other things to talk about. I'll be very surprised if they fill up 20 minutes, but let's have a talk. So the first thing I do want to talk about, of course, is Infinite Dark. This is my new game. It's coming out on the 28th of May, and it's a spaceship combat game. I could tell you all sorts of things about the game, but it was far easier to say, check out the blog, because I am publishing on the Precinct Omega blog at precinctomega.co.uk/blog a series of articles about the contents of Infinite Dark, what you're going to find in there, what makes it different, why you might want to play Infinite Dark rather than any of the other excellent spaceship combat games that are already out there. So if you play Full Thrust, if you play Battlefleet Gothic, if you play X-Wing, if you play Star Wars Armada, if you play A Billion Suns, which is the latest hotness from Osprey, why might you also want to play Infinite Dark? Or why might you want to play Infinite Dark instead? Who knows? If you want to find out, though, it is all on the blog. Do please have a look at that. My release plan for Infinite Dark. I'm a little bit. I mean, this because we're approaching release. It's always a stressful time approaching the release of a book, because if I were a proper publishing company, I wouldn't be releasing a book until several months after everything was finished. You'd have all of the art, all of the photography, all of the layout, all of the test prints, everything was done and finalised, and the actual release would be 3 to 6 months later, because you need time to build up interest, and you need to have a definite release date so that all of those retailers you have contracts with can be sure that they're going to have the books on the shelves in time for the release date, and all the marketing is lined up for that. I have neither the time nor the contacts nor the wherewithal to do that. I don't have retail partners yet, maybe one day in the future. So for me, once the book is finished, it has to be out there, because any time I spend sitting on it is time I'm not earning back the money that I've ploughed into creating it in the first place. So for me, completion and release are practically simultaneous. What I'm going to try and do this time, which I haven't managed to do with previous releases, if everything goes to plan, I will manage a print-on-demand and PDF simultaneous release. All of that relies upon all of the art that I still have outstanding arriving on time, and me being able to fit it into the book without it interfering with the layout too dramatically, which it shouldn't. I have 99% of the art, I have 98% of the photography, I have 99% of the layout is done and finished. Probably only about 95% of the fiction is done. There's still a little bit of writing still to do. The book contains I suppose you'd call it a short story. It's a little bit of a glorification. It's the story of a character in the book takes her through a career in her space navy. Tells her the story of her rise. It's not Honor Harrington. It's not literature. It's just there to get you in there. But I haven't quite finished her story. Assuming it all goes to plan, the release date is the 28th of May, and print on demand and PDF will land on the same day. If there is any delay, basically, if all of that stuff is not ready by the 14th of May, I won't have the print on demand out at the same time. Because it takes at least 2 weeks to get my test copy back for print on demand for me to be able to approve the print on demand release. So I've got to buy my own copy. It's got to be correct first time. So if the print-on-demand copy is not correct first time, if there is anything wrong with it that I have to correct, or if I just can't get it ordered in time, then print-on-demand will get pushed back. However, even if print-on-demand doesn't land on the 28th of May, PDF definitely should be out on the 28th of May. I've got a 2-week buffer period. There is no reason it shouldn't be ready on time. Once it is out, as I said, each of my 3 volumes in the Horizon Wars trilogy should have 3 supplements. And if you know anything about Horizon Wars Infinite Dark already, you'll know that there are 3 command levels in Horizon Wars Infinite Dark, which is 3 different levels you can play the game at. Fighter at the bottom, big battleship at the top, and sort of something in between in the middle. And I will be releasing a Infinite Dark supplement for each of those 3 levels. Unlike Zero Dark, where we're telling one story, effectively the 3 operation manuals for Zero Dark tell a single narrative. A single story, but from 3 consecutive perspectives. So the first volume, Operation Nemesis, tells the story from the perspective of Venus. Operation Kurgan picks up that story from the end of Operation Nemesis, takes it forward, but sees it from the perspective of Mars. The 3rd volume, as yet unnamed, which will be out in 2023, mid-20, probably either late 2022 or mid-2023, depending on how development on Midnight Dark goes. But the 3rd volume will pick up from the end of Operation Kurgan, finish the story, and will be told from the perspective of mostly the people of Earth. Okay, so we've got Venus, Mars, and Earth in that order. Meanwhile, Infinite Dark will also tell a single narrative in its... they're not called Operation Manuals for Infinite Dark, haven't got a title for them yet, but there'll be 3 volumes in 3 different command levels. Each will tell the same story consecutively. So the first volume will tell the story from the perspective of the fighter pilot and fighter pilots involved in the conflict that we tell the story of. The second volume will tell the story from the perspective of the mid-level, the long-range scouts, explorers, smugglers, miners, that kind of stuff. And the 3rd volume will tell the story from the perspective of the big strategic vision, the mighty battleships, and the fleet admirals. So that's the plan for Horizon Wars Infinite Dark. There is no release schedule yet for those 3 volumes. We'll wait and see how Infinite Dark lands. Basically, the more I sell, the quicker the releases will be of the supplements, because the more people are interested, the more I can shift. It's really very much an economic decision. Okay. What else are we going to look at? Okay, Zero Dark. Now, I've already spoken about Operation Kurgan, which was on my list, so we'll not trouble you with that. But there are minor supplements still to come. So I have 2 minor supplements planned for this year, and those are Fear and Most Wanted. Fear is nearly finished in terms of the actual writing and playtesting of it. It's nearly done. Then I've just got to do the layout and the photography. There might be new art for Fear. I make no promises. It very much depends on how much money I make off Infinite Dark. And then Most Wanted will follow. It'll be out before Christmas. And Most Wanted... Okay, Fear, first of all. Fear's an acronym. It's fighting in enclosed areas. It's a bit of a forced acronym. Work with me. But it started off as a supplement for fighting in Space Hulk type corridors. The brief has expanded a little bit now, so it's any grid-based playing surface. So it can be corridors such as you might find in Imperial Assault, or, as I said, in Space Hulk. You could use the mats from Core Space, which is a great game. Or the old Star Wars collectible miniatures game. If you've still got any of those mats hanging around, you could use one of those. Any gridded surface, you can use these mats. So if you would prefer to play your miniatures games on a gridded surface instead of a 4x4 with a tape measure, this is a supplement for you. If you would also like to play interior spaces, which is what the corridors are all about, again, this is the supplement for you. And if you would like a red force that is less modern military militia and more zombie apocalypse, this is for you. I say zombie apocalypse, as with all things Red Force, it's extremely generic. Generally, there are sort of 3 types of enemy that I have in mind when I'm designing what's now called the Brood, which is the Red Force in the Fear context. Could be zombies, and they're very much 28 days later, fast-moving zombies. They could be rogue robots, out-of-control robots, or they could be xenomorphs. So they could be aliens. Yeah, so they're aliens with a capital A, aliens, not just any old aliens. So those are the kind of 3 concepts that I've got in my head. If you want to run them as Gene Stealers in Space Hulk or whatever, that's entirely up to you. Far be it from me to suggest that. Okay, that's Fear. As I say, Fear's nearly finished, design-wise. There's going to be a lot of layout work to do. I suspect release for Fear will be over the summer. Sometime in August is my target date. Hopefully no later than September. Most Wanted will follow. Most Wanted is less a new way to play, and it's kind of an expansion of some of the rules in Operation Nemesis. It almost ended up as a section of Operation Nemesis, but Nemesis got far too long, and I had to cut it out. So Most Wanted introduces the idea of named characters, but not as heroes. Heroes are always your characters. These named characters are either allies or they are enemy bosses and nemesis. And broadly, Most Wanted is like a series of side quests. It's not intended to be a campaign as such. They're missions that you can play in addition to the other missions in any campaign that you're playing. So you can choose to play a Most Wanted mission. If you play a Most Wanted mission, you will come up against a particular boss or nemesis. If you defeat the boss and you succeed in the mission, you will recruit a new ally. And then that ally will be available to you according to the rules for that ally. It might be for any future missions, or it might just be for one mission, it might just be on the immediate mission afterwards, or it might be you can call upon them at any time in any mission of your choice. Any of the above. Yeah, so you could potentially recruit a whole army of additional allies as you go along, so you end up adding more and more allies to your team, if that's the kind of thing you like to do. If you win those missions. If you don't, tough. You've got to take that boss on again another time. So that's the idea with Most Wanted. So it's like a compendium of side missions that you can play with some named characters built in. My plan is that each named character will have a miniature that is already a miniature in production from another miniatures company with whom I have had positive dealings in the past. They may have provided an example for me to use, they may not have, it really doesn't matter. I prefer to pay for miniatures if I can afford it, but these days every penny counts. Right, okay, it is like 10 to 3. I would normally do this for another 10 minutes, but I have run out of things to talk about. So if anybody in the chat on Facebook has got any questions, this is kind of your last opportunity. If you're not watching this on Facebook live stream, if you're watching this later, and if you're watching this on YouTube and you've got any questions, do please put them in the comments. Do please remember to like and subscribe, because it really helps my algorithms and it helps other people see my videos, especially about Horizon Wars, which means more sales, which means more content. It really is as simple as that. The better I do, the more I give you. Simple as. So I've got no questions at all coming in from the live stream crew as far as I can tell. I will just double check that I'm not missing anything. Oh. No. So comments we've had. Alex Paint Stuff has been on the comments. Hello again, Alex. Thank you for joining me. Alex has been here all the way through, so I really appreciate that. And Adam is doing some sculpting for me, and we will eventually get around to looking at his designs and miniatures. I'm really excited about getting them out there, but it requires a level of focus and planning to see that project through to a conclusion that, while I've still got Infinite Dark going on, just isn't going to happen. But hopefully when Infinite Dark is out there, I will restock my funds and restock my energy, and we can make Horizon Wars Infinite Dark miniatures a reality, Adam and I. Right, thank you very much everybody who's joined. Oh, we've got Rory going to watch the replay on YouTube. Okay, so Rory's coming late as well, but that is no problem. Like I say, I'm going to be on YouTube now if you want to catch up later. If you've got any questions in the comments, I will reply to them as I see them. So thank you very much for joining us. I will speak to you next week in Livestream, and do catch up on the podcast. It's out 12 o'clock on Monday. It's an interview with a 3D sculptor who is not Adam Rogers. I will have Adam on eventually, I hope. But we're talking about the market and how 3D designers try to get their designs out into the hands of customers in a sort of a direct sale basis as much as possible. Right, okay. That's it. I'm going to go. Thank you very much for joining us. I will speak to you again next week.